Great to have you with us on Business Review as the Marikana community prepares to commemorate the anniversary of the Marikana Massacre tomorrow. Families of the victims say they're still waiting for answers 2 years on. The Farlam Commission of Inquiry is still underway about whether the police were justified in using maximum force. It's only expected to wrap up in September. So where do we stand and what's been heard so far? My colleague Nozintombi Miya has been following proceedings. She joins us in studio now. Thank you for joining us. Nozintombi, the families of those who were killed and us as South Africans have been watching for months. And a lot of people saying after all these months, all we have is a bit of a muddle about what actually happened on the day and the lead up to that massacre. Do you agree?
Well, I think it's definitely important for the Commission to be given the time it needs to complete all the investigations and speak to all the role players. And it does seem as though it has dragged out. It has been over 18 months that the Commission has sat and called in various witnesses, and we don't quite have a clear picture at the moment as to who exactly was the catalyst that led to TRT police officers shooting live ammunition. And I think that's the crux of what Presiding Judge Ian Farlam really wants to find out. Who was it that ordered police to shoot live ammunition? Because had police not shot live ammunition, we wouldn't be finding ourselves in this particular situation that we're in.
And that's what people were hoping for, some sort of timeline and who gave that order to use the live ammunition, as you say. What do we have in terms of a timeline?
Well, in terms of the timeline, it became extremely critical this week for us to hear from Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, because you'll remember he sent that email that's now been dubbed the controversial email on the 15th. And this was the eve of which the TRT police officers then shot rubber bullets. And in his email, he talks about concomitant action being taken against the strikers on the ground and putting pressure on the police minister to ensure that he gets police on the ground to act in a more pointed way. And that email was sent to lawmen executives. And we know that in the days preceding the 15th that the deputy president, who was then a lawman shareholder, had talks with the then police minister, Nasim Tetua, and the then minister of mineral resources, Susan Shabangu. So all of that does seem at the moment as if that could have been the catalyst. Did he exert his political pressure on the police minister, on the minister of mineral resources, to ensure that more police were on the ground, to ensure that the police had a more heightened awareness of the situation on the ground? Well,
he said we need to take collective responsibility, many players involved, but there was a lot of anger coming out towards Cyril Ramaphosa. Do you think we've seen the full extent of the political fallout yet?
Well, I think that there certainly was a lot of anger towards Cyril Ramaphosa. We saw that he was heckled quite a bit on the 2 days that he was there. He did seem a little bit blasé about some of the abuse and the insults that were hurled his way. But the heckling showed us the amount of anger that people still have towards government, and that is not just a reflection of how they felt about Cyril Ramaphosa. I think a lot of people who supported who supported AMCU and who support Julius Malema's EFF have a lot of anger towards the ANC, because the ANC is perceived as not having done enough on the ground for the people of Marikana in ensuring that their socio-economic problems are addressed. Because at the end of the day, the strike was started because the workers are living in poor conditions. They're living in squalor in some of the informal settlements. The hostels are in absolute dire conditions, and the living out allowance that they're getting is not enough to sustain their cost of living. So that is definitely a very interesting situation that we'll be seeing going forward.
Finally, this week, the widows, the orphans, the families were given a chance to talk about the people they had lost. So there's a lot of frustration because of the delays, but was there some catharsis as well? What was that like?
Well, we certainly hope that it was cathartic for them to share some of the last few days that they had with their loved ones. But at a certain point on Wednesday, the widows broke down in hysterics. 4 of them had to be carried out and sent to hospital for medical attention, and 1 had become unconscious. So it certainly was a very emotional few days after Cyril Ramaphosa's testimony, them talking about their loved ones, what their loved ones enjoyed doing, and talking about when they heard that their loved ones were killed by police and having to go to the mortuary in the northwest to try and identify the bodies. So I think them speaking about it has definitely helped them deal with it, because we do know that they have received some level of trauma counselling, but whether that's enough is another question.
So not only getting to the truth, but dealing with the truth. Thank you so much for joining us. And Nozintombi will continue to follow the Farlam Commission of Inquiry. Well, that unfortunately all we have time for. I will be back with a quick business update in primetime news shortly. See you.